This is Reverend Dr. Michael Vanderpool, intuitive astrologer, and today is May 15, 2014, and there's a kind of very unique and interesting mix of Magi, that's M-A-G-I, astrology happening right now in the general sky above, both in geocentric point of view and the heliocentric sky as well. So what we're seeing is that, first of all, just yesterday there was actually I'm going to go back and look at the day before that, and we're looking at May 13th, and there was a grand trine. So this is a rare alignment or planetary geometry, and it makes a perfect triangle, and in this case it involved the planets of Jupiter, Saturn, and Chiron. So the typical negative effects of Saturn can be considered negated to a greater or lesser extent just in that planetary geometry, and it's a sign of something unique, rare, and with Jupiter being there and Chiron quite dynamic, and Saturn can be interpreted in various ways in that, but it's good to note that Saturn itself is negated in that, and that additionally is good for anything to do with children, teaching of children, or luck, good fortune with that, or some wisdom with that. And there's other ways to interpret that, of course, but that's one significant thing to note. It's a very good time to think about structuring your life for career-oriented goals, or toward more freedom and innovative approaches to career and family as well. This is my both book knowledge of that, but also kind of an intuitive touch to that as well. A lot of people will be seeking ways to structure their lives and to set goals towards those areas to better obtain what they want in those areas of their life. So it's a good time for setting goals for that. Another interesting aspect right now in the sky that was on the 13th, and by the way, that's still in effect. That's why I mentioned the Grand Trine. That was active on May 13, 2014, and we'll give that 3 days to still be in effect. And so we look at that today on May 15th when I'm making this audio as still in effect. But after the 16th, we can say that energy is no longer an energy that's able to be natalized, that's for sure. In terms of the orbs that we use in Magi astrology, the 3-day orb of that Grand Trine having broke, so to speak, having peaked on the 13th. So after the 16th, we're going to not give that so much attention. And actually, later on the 13th, there was an additional the moon, if you were in the New York location, or here in the Midwest also, as I'm seeing it in the chart, formed an additional grand trine with the Jupiter and Chiron as part of that. So that's also very interesting, especially you can look at issues regarding the home or real estate, or more emotional related, and anything to do with self-improvement actually would be something that I would consider a part of that energy as well. So as we look at that chart, you can also consider that it's a good time to look at changes because of the Venus conjunct Uranus that's in there, looking for things that connect with entertainment or worldwide travel or broadcasting, television. It's good for actresses and acting and things like that, that's for sure. Any kind of business to do with entertainment, such as bars, restaurants, cafes, dancers. This is something that would especially apply to anybody in the entertainment field or entertainment business. So this is something to look at. Now, as I go a little further into the day of the 13th, and I'm doing this right now as I make this audio, and I'm studying the chart and seeing that actually I mentioned the 16th that it'll still be active in terms of the orb. It's actually going to go a little bit into the 17th, because as I track this out now, the Grand Trine isn't breaking until the 14th, but it's going to be early in the morning on the 14th of May 2014 that actually breaks. So actually that will carry over into early morning if you're in the Midwest, in the USA, or on the New York, time zone, the East Coast. So you've got really that kind of energy carrying over until early morning, the 17th of that Grand Trine that I just mentioned. So that's something to keep in mind, because in addition to all that, in addition to the Venus conjunct Uranus also, which gives that extra energy for looking at, kind of a change up in things, reevaluating your goals, setting new goals, and really going for it. You've got the awesome Jupiter trine Earth in heliocentric sky. And that aspect, that particular powerful dynamic flow of energy between Jupiter and Earth, that trine goes on until May 17th. So we're going to say that that's in effect for natalizations all the way up until May 20th, 3 days later. So you've got this entire next 5 days to work with that energy in terms of natalization. It actually peaks out, that aspect ends on May 17th. But again, we're using a 3-day orb for the natalization, so you can say that natalizations and using that type of energy, or embedding that type of energy into anything you do new, any new actions, or anything you form new, or birth, so to speak. That's why we use the word natalization, natal, to birth, or actions that you're making something new, making something born anew, so to speak, goes on until the 20th. So you've got until May 20th, 2014 to capture this great dynamic flow of Jupiter energy into whatever it is you're doing, into putting that into, embedding that into that thing, that contract, that new friendship, that new meeting that you make, that those goals that you set forth and start to pursue. That energy you have to capture up until May 20th, 2014, and anything you're doing with that. Now, that's not including looking at your personal transits, and they should be considered as always in terms of the rules of natalization, as well as the kind of progression that the chart sets up, and in terms of the day itself, looking to see what's going on with how many planets are aspecting the sun or the earth, to see what kind of, how much of an impact the thing, that particular natalization will have, and so on. But overall, this is a really nice time for thinking things over, making wise decisions, or having an element of additional divine wisdom or good judgment, good fortune, more peace, prosperity. It's a good time to try to make a truce, to try to make the peace. If you've had a conflict, if you've had some grudges, if you have a relationship with family, business partners, with maybe some authority figures, whatever it could be in your life, if you've had some disputes and these lingering conflicts, it's a good time to give it a go, to try to resolve that, to try to bring a peace, to try to bring a truce, to try to also, again, make decisions more wisely and with a deeper insight and a greater wisdom, and to be quite simple about it in terms of the astrology that we see until the 20th of May. In effect, it's a greater time to have luck, to have good fortune in doing all those things. And that's what Jupiter brings to the table in this period up until May 20th, 2014. So it's also a time, if you have a first meeting opportunity, to not only natalize those energies that I've described so far into those first meetings with people you've never met before, but it's a good time to natalize or bring forth long-lasting friendships, because Neptune is trine Vesta. And if you're into forming a new charity, a foundation, a non-profit organization, or perhaps, I would say even some things closely related to government, perhaps, those things would do well, especially if it's a church or a spiritual organization those things would fall in there as well, because Neptune trine Vesta can bring all that into a lifelong endeavor, or a long-lasting endeavor. Or it also supports doing creative, artistic projects, activities with friends. And all those things can be enhanced and really charged up with that Neptune trine Vesta energy that's in the sky right now. Also, in the heliocentric sky, Mars is parallel Jupiter until March 20th, and it peaks out, and again it'll last up to 3 days after that. So March 23rd, 2014, May 23rd, 2014, that energy will be in effect. And that's a kind of metaphysical energy, really. It's an advocacy for truth, and it really charges up the luck and the truth-seeking and the advocacy for truth, the divine insight and wisdom of Mars. And in this particular sense, I'm getting it's a really strongly metaphysical type of energy in this period all the way up until the 23rd. So really finding out truth, whatever that truth is, whether it's a truth about yourself, doing a lot of inner work, inner reflection, contemplation, or whether it's seeking truth out in the world, going to a good metaphysical bookstore or bookshop, or ordering some from eBay, Amazon, or any other of the great online bookstores. There's I've got Omsh Books and Services, but there's also Llewellyn. There are such books at Barnes & Noble. I was just at a Barnes & Noble yesterday in Columbia, Missouri. But seeking and reading articles, not necessarily having to purchase a book or to visit some metaphysical bookshops, but also just looking at YouTube videos or seeking out online blogs and websites that have to do with the metaphysics or that which is metaphysical, is strongly supported all the way up until May 23rd, 2014 by the Jupiter parallel Mars. It's very energized, and so is luck and the advocacy for truth. Also, I would say that legal consult with lawyers, as I've actually done also in this period through my Legal Shield membership with the Legal Shield law firm, Legal Shield provider, is also very strongly supported by that type of energy as well. And some who are into teaching might find that, or leadership, that it's a touch of that energy is going to be enhanced until that time as well. And again, that's now until May 23rd, 2014. Now, the really interesting part of all this for many of you is going to be a bit of sexual astrology that we see in this time, and that is a rare aspect in the geocentric sky of Pluto trine Juno that is going to peak out on May. It's now in the sky above us, but it's going to peak out on May 19, 2014. Now, Pluto trine Juno is not just a sexual aspect, that is a super sexual aspect, and that is strong. The energy is very, very strong. And as a super sexual aspect that involves the asteroid or astro body, as we say in Magi astrology, Juno, that Juno trine Pluto, Pluto being a very sexual planet, is very obsessive. It's very raw, it's very lustful, and it's very strong. And that goes on in terms of being able to natalize that energy and realistically being able to still feel the effects of that energy, not only now and up until the 19th, but we're going to give that until the 22nd, all the way through into the 22nd of May 2014. So from now until May 22nd, 2014, with that aspect peaking out on the 19th of May 2014, that is a very powerful, obsessive, very raw, lustful, super sexual energy that is in effect in the sky above. So look for that energy, look for it around us, that you'll see that. You can experiment with that type of super sexual energy, and especially if you natalize it into a first-time sexual relationship. That's something that in Magi astrology theory will carry over throughout the length of that sexual relationship. That is a very obsessive, very super lustful, very strong super sexual energy. So that's a rare formation. And so for many of you that are married or in a committed relationship, this is a great time for that great sex weekend getaway. This is a great time for any type of sexual involvements and sexual activity that you want that type of specific type of energy that I just described. And as an additional sexual astrology, there is, now that we're talking about what's in geocentric sky right now, if we go over to the heliocentric sky, there is actually a Mercury trine Juno. So that can be interpreted also. An additional heads up is that if you talk about erotica, if you talk about sex, if you are communicating, writing, texting about erotica or sexual fantasies or things like that, that is also enhanced and supported in this energy as well. And that particular Mercury trine Juno, which peaks out on the 16th of May 2014, and it'll be in effect up until May 19th, 2014. It's actually part of a golden rectangle right now, with a Vesta trine Neptune being the other side of that golden rectangle. So it's actually quite strong. It's in a synchronization with, actually, Ceres is part of that synchronization as well, although it's not part of the golden triangle. So that's going to amp that up. And the Neptune being a part of that, being creative, being kind of artistic about that, you can get some ideas on how to make that other energy that I just mentioned come into play. And as a side note, since I'm on the topic of sexual astrology, there is a Venus 30 degrees Pluto in the sky, so the idea of a kind of romantic edge, a kind of romantic nature, an aesthetic, beauty, lingerie and lace comes to mind, or dressing keen, kind of cool, that kind of thing, trendy, fashionable. Those things are supported by the Venus 30 degrees Pluto in there as well. So that gives you some ideas. This is a fantastic time to really go for it, whether it's a new meeting with those kind of energies you want to employ, or whether it's a committed relationship you're already in, a marriage or a long-term relationship. Now is the time to go out and take advantage of that kind of energy, if that's what you're wanting to be supported with or to take advantage of. Now is the time for that type of energy. Now, conversely, another way that we can interpret the Mercury trine Juno is to say that if you want to dream about travel, if you want to write about travel, if you want to write about education, or dream about going for it can be a short course. There's a lot of short courses online. Google offers a 3-month coding, how to make internet websites or work with Java and different internet code. You can do that nowadays. You can get started with that and have online tutorials and classes and everything else. Or you could go to a short course we have a career center here where people can go and take computer courses or cooking courses or welding courses and things like that. This is a time that supports dreaming about and thinking about education, about further learning, but also travel, whether that's to the nearby parks or recreation areas or a lake or a beach or the mountains, but it supports dreaming and then pursuing places where you want to visit as well. So those are a couple of ways to interpret the Mercury trine Juno and to actually spend that energy. Now, to go back to an alternative and equally valid interpretation of the Pluto trine Juno, outside of the supersexual astrology that we just talked about, you can also look at that as powerfully and very profoundly, with real impact, beginning the pursuit of your dreams. So if you've had a lifelong goal of doing something, or pursuing a project, or maybe even starting something that you've wanted to do, that you've always procrastinated about or haven't gotten to yet, this is a good time to powerfully put those plans into action. Now, again, in terms of Magi astrology theory and practice, you would want to consider the other aspects in the sky, positive and negative, and other factors, including the natalize, in terms of natalization, the progress chart that you set up, and how many other planets are impacting the Earth or the Sun, as far as how much of an impact the natalization would actually have, and your own personal transits in terms of, are there other factors there, negative or positive, that would be considered. But just generally speaking, this is a quick overview of the astrology that we see now in the sky. And actually, this is quite a charged natalization in terms of today and all the way through the 20th and 23rd, because Sun is contraparallel Pluto, and that goes on until, again, May 2014. So you can consider that in effect up until the 23rd in terms of its effect. And this gives that the day itself a lot of Pluto energy, a lot of impactful energy. And with Jupiter applying trine to the Earth, that's also a quite impactful or kind of a charge, kind of a luck, prosperity, kind of an expansive type of energy, a kind of divine touch to everything that we are talking about employing in terms of working with these planetary energies that are available to us in this time right now. So this is a quick overview of some of the aspects that we're working with in the sky right now. There's certainly, with the Mars, quincunx Neptune, there's certainly a lot of energized kind of support, the energy to pursue plans, to put things into action. It's definitely not a time to just be passive, and that is assuming that you're the type of person that wants to use astrology and the timing and the power of the influences to make things happen, to manifest things in your life, and to have a green light from the universe, so to speak, to kind of push forward and to go for it. So that's a quick overview. That's some of the super sexual astrology that's in the sky right now. That's some of the fantastic, wonderful Jupiter energy that we see and experience these days ahead. Be sure to check out my website at http://universalstar.gs, or my YouTube channel at Michael Vanderpool, or TIGR7170. Typing that into the YouTube search engine. And this is May 15th, 2014. Best wishes to all of you, and enjoy. This is a fantastic number of days that we have ahead now. So this will be a very, very wonderful time for many of you that are listening to this audio. Take care, and best of luck to you.